Okay, Seth, Arizona. Didn't see that coming, did you?
No, did not see that coming. It makes sense now that we know that's what it is. Hey, the money was right. He gets over $20 million guaranteed. It's a 2-year contract. So sometimes when you get to that age, you don't want to be tied down in case your knees go kaput. So I think that part is good. And honestly, we could talk about the X's and O's, and we will. But one of the biggest differences here is J.J. Watt just spent 2 years with Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby at the helm. Imagine the difference going to Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, of all people, polar opposites in a lot of respects. And I think probably with some good sales jobs by DeAndre Hopkins, by Vance Joseph, who is the defensive coordinator in Arizona now, but was a defensive backs coach back when the Texans defense was really good, 2011, 2012. I think it was probably just checked off enough boxes.
But this is still an 8-8 team. Is this really a team that can get him to the Super Bowl?
Well, I don't think that JJ's ever said that he was ring chasing. And I think there's a chance that part of this is just that this is where it felt right. And this is where he could play in a scheme that's going to be familiar to him. Vance Joseph, is going to run a lot of the same elements that Wade Phillips did back when JJ was playing for Wade Phillips and racking up defensive players of the year. And then they also, of course, have Chandler Jones. So when JJ just spent this year as the only viable pass rusher on a defense, I think probably just from a very individual perspective, he wanted to go where he could produce and where he could be a contributing member to a good defense. So I don't look at it as a bet on the Cardinals Super Bowl chances as much as I look at it as a bet on the Cardinals defense really turning it around and becoming something.
He's obviously not the defensive player of the year he once was, but on film, he's clearly still a guy that can make an impact, right?
Yeah. And especially in the run game, he's still very, very effective. He had a bunch of tackles for a loss this year, and that still does matter. I know people don't care about the run game as much, but when you can't stop the run, all of a sudden everything else starts going to pot. So there is that. And then also, I think that JJ has the ability to, especially if they move him down inside on third downs and he rushes over offensive guards, he's still very lethal with his hands. He's still very strong. And I think that Vance Joseph out there in Arizona is going to figure out a way to use him creatively. He won a lot of pass rush snaps this year, but quarterbacks were able to get rid of the ball really fast. It was easier to focus on JJ and double team him or chip him with running backs. That's not going to be the case. I expect sometime in the next couple of years he's going to have at least one more double-digit sack season.
You once changed teams, obviously under different circumstances. What will be the biggest hurdle he'll have to handle changing teams?
Learning everybody's names. It's hard enough these days, just even on the team that you're already on when you got all these guys coming in. And with COVID restrictions, you can't see their faces either. We saw everybody. I'm not joking, man. It's hard to learn everybody's names. Everybody's calling each other bro for the first, well, with the expansion team with the Texans, nobody knew each other. So there was no pressure. Now JJ's going to be the new guy going in. But JJ's probably going to have some tutorial program set up on his computer so that by the time he goes to the first OTAs, he knows everybody and 3 facts about them. He'll be well prepared for it.
What do you make of JJ being the guy who breaks his own news? Will we see more of this, or is this JJ being JJ?
I think we saw him have a lot of fun with it this free agency period, right? He was kind of toying with the fans a little bit, like in a playful way, not really trolling anybody. But I don't know. I think maybe the false Peloton report from earlier in the day where an ESPN reporter got duped by somebody who claimed that JJ had a Peloton profile that hinted at where he might be going. And JJ had to shut that down. So I don't know. Maybe an hour or two later, JJ just felt like, all right, listen, I'm going to handle this on my own since obviously other people are going to try to beat me to the punch.
Here with Cameron Cox from 12 News in Phoenix, our sister station. Let me ask you this. Did you even consider Arizona being a fit for J.J. Watt?
I think I had some blind faith, Jason. You always kind of hope that maybe JJ would consider coming to this organization, but they just had some other needs that I thought they needed to address. And you just thought JJ Watt, with what he could get on the open market, was maybe just out of their price range per se, but they somehow made it work and they fit that, and they'll still be able to address some of those needs and bring in a caliber player. Unbelievable what Steve Keim is able to pull off, and it'll be great for this organization. Not only what he can do on the field, and I still think he has a lot left in the tank, but what he's going to bring into this locker room. There were a lot of things that went wrong for this organization at the end of last year. I'm not going to complain because, as you know, the Texans have plenty wrong with them, so our problems are nowhere near what you guys got. But there were so many things that went wrong at the end of this past year. Bringing in a guy like J.J. Watt almost kind of gets him back on that right path again, and maybe can get him over the hump next year.
And that was my next question. JJ, he wants to play in a Super Bowl, but can this 8-8 team get him there?
That's still to be determined. They still have to figure out a lot of things offensively. Cliff Kingsbury has to grow as a head coach, a Texas guy. And there's just some things Cliff has to do better during games that's going to get that offensive rolling. But defensively, I thought they played really well last year. J.J. Watt has a familiarity with Vance Joseph. When VJ was there with Wade Phillips back in the day, those were J.J. Watt's early years. So now those two reunite once again. But to pair a guy like J.J. Watt alongside Chandler Jones, 1-2 in the NFL in sacks, those two guys will definitely benefit from one another. J.J. Watt, as you know, was double-teamed so many times last year. Now you have to worry about Chandler Jones on the opposite side. I think defensively they'll be very, very good, but there's still plenty of question marks offensively, and there's still plenty of questions out there if Cliff can coach and is the right coach for this team moving forward. But getting J.J. Watt on that defense is definitely a big help.
So there's some serious concerns in Phoenix about whether Cliff Kingsbury is the right guy to move this organization forward. Is that right?
Yeah, there's major concerns. It's just how they finished last year, a total nosedive to end the season. And to make matters worse, I said this. Cliff committed some fireable offenses at the end of last year. I didn't think he should have lost his job. I think him and Kyler are tied together. They're going to ride this wave out. No, they're not trading Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson, so people at Houston quit panicking. I think they're going to ride this out. But there were definitely some times towards the end of last year where Cliff looked lost during the game. He didn't command it well. He didn't call the right plays in right situations. They were just bad situational football. And so there were definitely some fireable offenses that if you're a coach in this league and you do those, you could justify losing your job. I think Cliff has another year. This is a big year for him to get this right. He's not going anywhere this year. They're going to let him ride this out, I say. But I think Cliff has to show some growth in year 3. Same thing with Kyler Murray.
Best case scenario for JJ, worst case scenario for JJ.
Best case scenario, this team wins a Super Bowl over the next 2 years. I know that's something him and DeAndre Hopkins, as he tweeted out not too long ago, they have some unfinished business both would like to do. Hopefully the best case scenario here as well, this gets Larry Fitzgerald to come back another year. You're bringing another veteran in this locker room. So best case scenario, this team takes a massive jump, gets into the playoffs, can be very competitive, and can get close to the Super Bowl. The worst case scenario is that he just doesn't stay healthy and, unfortunately, it just becomes a bust signing in a way. But I think J.J. Watt has shown his durability at times and showed when he's healthy that he can be in there for a bunch of snaps, played over 1,000 snaps last year. I think he's only one of 2 defensive linemen to do that. So when he's healthy and when he's out there, he's definitely somebody who can contribute. And he's still a guy that people have to game plan for. And so that'll be fun to watch.
You said it, that Kyler Murray will not be traded for Deshaun Watson. Would you welcome that, though, if it ever happened?
Don't put me on the spot like this. Would I welcome it? Yes, I think I would welcome it just because Deshaun is a little older, a veteran guy, per se, not so much. But I think I would welcome it here in a sense. But I think Kyler and Cliff are going to ride this out. I don't think he's going anywhere. Steve Keim already traded away one quarterback to get Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he's going to trade away it again. Kyler has shown the skills to be in this league. He showed the ability to play quarterback at a high level. I still am on the record saying I think he's going to win an MVP of this league one year. I think he's that talented. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Would I welcome it? Just because I think Deshaun Watson is a hell of a player and a great talent and what he brings to the table, sure. But do I think it's going to happen? No, I do not.
I'm telling you, from my perspective, I look at an 8-8 team and JJ's going there. And I have to believe it was a combination of upside and money. But from JJ's perspective, when you've got the Packers and maybe Buffalo and some of these other teams, it's really bizarre to me that it would be Arizona of all teams.
It just shows the Cardinals have a long way to go as far as national recognition and really for people to buy into what Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray are selling out here. And so I think they still have a ways to go. They still have a lot to prove. So while, Cliff Kingsbury gets a lot of talk nationally, Kyler Murray does too at times, they're still not known for doing anything yet. So this is a gamble somewhat in JJ. This is not the right away Super Bowl contender like Tom Brady was signing with the Bucs was. This is a team that has to prove something, that hasn't been to the playoffs since 2015, that hasn't been competitive really since last year. Hasn't really been competitive for the first time in a while, which was last year. So this is a team that has a lot to prove, and we'll see if they can finally get over the hump, bringing in a guy like J.J. Watt. They got some other moves to make too as well, but this is a good start for a team like the Cardinals in the offseason. Jason, how shocked were you to hear this news?
Incredibly shocked, because when you listen to all the odds makers and the experts, it seemed like it was going to come down to Green Bay or the Pittsburgh Steelers or maybe Buffalo, and to have Arizona, because when you look at what JJ wants, he has his money, he has his personal awards. The one thing JJ wants is a Super Bowl. And when I saw the Arizona Cardinals on his t-shirt, my first reaction was, is Arizona really the team to get him there? But obviously he must feel like the upside is incredible there for him to take this leap and to go to Arizona.
Why will he work here? What makes you think J.J. Watt can still be that defensive player of the year?
Well, I don't know if he's a defensive player of the year type guy still. I think the numbers would bear out that he's not. But he is still an impact player. When you look back at some of the games this year and you see, for example, the Tennessee Titans, Tennessee with Derrick Henry running away from JJ on nearly every meaningful play. So when I see that with my eyes and you look at some of the game tape, you know JJ is still an impact guy. And when you also look at some of the plays he made this year, really with a porous secondary behind him, a linebacking crew that really made little to no impact. Here's a guy that still scored a touchdown this year, that still makes plays, and of course was a factor in stopping the run. So do I think he's the defensive player of the year that everybody knows about? No, but here's a guy who certainly can make an impact, and I think that's why Arizona feels the same way, throwing all that money at him.
We have another former Houston guy, and Chris Paul here. He has fixed the Phoenix Suns. It seems like everywhere Chris Paul goes, he fixes a team. Can J.J. Watt fix what's been wrong with the Cardinals?
Well, I must admit, I don't know exactly what's wrong with the Cardinals, but I do know this. JJ is one of the most beloved locker room guys in the NFL. It's not easy to be the guy who everyone talks about, everybody wants his picture, everybody mentions his name, but it seems as though JJ does an incredible job of balancing all the personal accolades and all the attention he gets, but still is one of the guys in the locker room. He has been a master at that for years. And now when you also consider that DeAndre Hopkins is in the same locker room with him, and DeAndre obviously welcoming this move. So from that perspective, I think it is a win-win for the Cardinals, just that you're getting JJ the guy. And people will see everything he does in the community, all the money he raised in Houston after Hurricane Harvey. So this is a guy who has done it on the field, albeit some shortened seasons due to injuries. But for the most part, this is a guy who's a winner in the locker room and on the field as well.